Ever noticed how we spend our lives chasing something, but we can't even put a name to it? For one person, it's a bottle. For another, it's a constant restlessness, this urge to just keep moving. Look, behind every chase, behind every strong pull, there's a quiet feeling, a deep sense that something is missing. And maybe that feeling is just our true nature, trying to get our attention, not with some loud voice from the sky, but with a gentle whisper in the emptiness we feel. You know, many people see this constant chasing as a kind of weakness. But think about it this way: what if it's just a search for home that's lost its way? You're not looking for something out there in the world. You're trying to find your way back to a quiet place within. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every craving is helpful. Not at all. But that constant restlessness, that feeling that you're never quite settled, it's like an echo of something true. Simply put, we often feel like something's missing in our lives, like we're not quite whole, so we spend our lives trying to feel complete again, to be at peace, and we search for it. We look for it in books, in other people, in short-lived pleasures we grasp, we hold on tightly. We walk the same circles over and over again. You know why? Because deep down, there's a memory of a time when there was a great stillness, a feeling of being connected. And our mind and body ache to return to that place, but we've forgotten the path home. So we build temporary shelters instead. We chase a feeling, not for the joy itself, but for that one fleeting moment when we can forget the unease. And for just a second, the inner noise stops. In that moment of quiet, we touch something that feels real. The problem is we try to repeat it. We think the answer is in the drink, the action, the experience. We don't realize the quiet was already inside us. It's like a person who sees the reflection of the moon in the water. He dives in trying to grab it, but he only finds the water. He misses the real moon that was above him the whole time. That whole feeling of being separate from life, from peace, from yourself. That's really just a trick of the mind. Actually, you were never separate from the stillness you seek. You just believed you were. We cause ourselves struggle because we take this whole drama so seriously. Think about it. We take a simple desire and turn it into a big struggle. We hold on to a fleeting moment and think it will save us. But that deep inner peace, it can't be held in a bottle or a moment or another person. It's much too large for that. Picture a single wave in the ocean. It doesn't need to try to become the ocean. It already is the ocean. It was never separate to begin with. Our constant struggle is just like a storm we create, trying to get back to a place we never even left. When your inner compass points true, the path becomes clear. It's time to find that direction. Declare your intention by writing this in the comments below. As my true home is within me. Your words are powerful. Make them a signpost for your journey back. If this idea of finding your way home speaks to you, consider joining our community. Subscribe and we can explore this path together, little by little, step by step. And when I say this, it's not to judge anyone who struggles. In fact, people who feel this restlessness most deeply are often the most sensitive. They are the ones who feel the absence of inner peace so strongly that they will do almost anything to feel whole again. In that deep longing, there's a certain kind of honesty. You see, wisdom often comes not in our comfort, but in our struggles. It's not in the easy moments, but in the places where we feel stuck. And perhaps this struggle is not a failing. Perhaps it's just a misunderstood signal from deep within you, saying, there is more to you than this small, unsettled feeling you're holding on to. It's like a phone ringing with an important message. Once you get the message, you can hang up. But often we don't. We keep calling the same number, chasing the same brief feeling, hoping the next time it will be different. But the answer was never in the experience. It was in the quiet that came after it. The quiet that says, this isn't it, but you're getting closer. So as we look at this together, I invite you to see this struggle not as a failure, but as a clue, a signpost pointing you back to the source. Because what you are truly searching for isn't just pleasure or escape. You're looking for wholeness. You're looking for that feeling of coming home. And the most interesting part, you were never really away from it. We live in a world where everyone seems hungry for something. Not a hunger in the stomach, but a hunger deep inside. It's the kind that keeps you restless even when you have everything you thought you wanted. It's that particular ache you feel in quiet moments, when the noise dies down and success doesn't feel like enough. That's not a mistake. That's the deeper part of you remembering something real it once knew. Now, to understand this pull, we first need to look at desire itself. Desire is not wrong, it's a natural part of life. A flower desires to bloom. A stream desires to reach the sea. But when desire loses its connection to our inner well-being, it just becomes a hunger that is never filled. That's when it turns into a painful loop. You see, we mix up the thing we want with the feeling we're really looking for. We think a cup of water will quench our thirst, but maybe the thirst wasn't just for the liquid. Maybe it was for the feeling of being alive. So, this constant searching isn't a love for the wrong thing. It's just a strong energy that's been pointed in a direction that leads nowhere. It's like we've been convinced that true peace is always somewhere else. Just one more drink, one more experience, one more achievement, and then we'll feel complete. But each time we get there, we find ourselves feeling the same emptiness. So the pattern just repeats. We keep circling the same tree, reaching for its shadow instead of resting under its branches. We call this a problem, but what it really is forgetfulness. We've simply forgotten that what we're looking for is not in the thing itself. It was in the state of inner unity it gave us a glimpse of. Think of a man standing by the ocean at sunset. He feels a deep quiet wash over him. In that moment, he isn't separate from the world. He's just part of it all. That right there, that's the feeling the chase is after. Not the substance, not the sensation, but that brief moment when the small self disappears. When we return to the quiet that's always here. The tragedy is not the craving itself. It's the misunderstanding of what we are craving. This constant search is like the stillness within looking for itself. So when you feel that intense need, that restlessness, try not to fight it. It isn't your enemy. It is a very old and very deep part of you asking to be seen. It's the whole universe trying to become aware of itself, right here inside you. But if you keep chasing the wave instead of resting in the ocean, you will always feel thirsty. The answer isn't to get rid of desire. It's to understand it, to follow it back to its source, to realize that underneath every craving is a call to come home, to return to the stillness you never actually lost. When you start to see this, the struggle becomes not a burden, but a compass, a quiet reminder of where you've forgotten to look. Because that peace isn't gone. It's just hiding behind the masks of your desires, waiting for you to see its face. And maybe then, when the feeling comes again, you might just notice it differently. You'll know it's not just a demand to be filled, but an invitation to wake up. It's an interesting thing, how we live. We spend so much energy trying to control everything. Our thoughts, our image, our future. And then we give in to things that end up controlling us. A bottle, a habit, a repetitive thought. We chase letting go, but only on our own terms. We want to find peace, but we think it has to be safe and predictable. So we find replacements. A drink, a constant distraction, a comforting routine. Little rituals we use to try and forget ourselves for a little while. And for a moment, they work. For a short time, the walls we build around ourselves seem to fade. And in that feeling, we get a taste of quiet. The person seeking stillness in a quiet room and the person seeking it in a bottle are not so different. Both are searching for a way to quiet the noisy mind. One walks up the mountain to find stillness in meditation. The other uses intoxication to try and find the same silence. The direction is different, but the deep need is the same. The trouble is not the desire itself. It's the direction it's pointed. Because one learns that you cannot reach that deep quiet by grasping for it, but the other believes you can drink it, smoke it, or force it to happen. Looking for something timeless in a fleeting moment, it's like trying to hold the whole ocean in a cup. And still, can we really place blame? Haven't we all done the same thing? We chase things, identities, ideas, and we call it living a meaningful life. We chase control and call it peace. But true peace isn't found in control. It's found in letting go. When you get lost in a habit, what you are really saying is, I want to get out of this feeling of being stuck. But instead of finding a real door, you build another room. Maybe it's a nicer room, a more exciting room, but it's still a room. True freedom is found when you stop needing a specific answer, because it's not the substance or the act that traps you. It's the endless search for certainty, the desire for something solid, something that will finally fix everything. But life isn't like that. It moves. It's more like a dance than a statue. The moment you try to freeze the dance, it stops being alive. Trying to find endless peace in a fleeting experience is like trying to bottle the wind. It will always escape. The calm you felt was never in the drink. It was in the brief moment when the boundaries you hold so tightly vanished. It was the instant when you were gone and there was only quiet awareness. That silence that comes afterwards when the rush fades, that hollow ache in your chest, that's where the real message is. That emptiness you might be afraid of. It's not a punishment. It's a space. It's a quiet reminder saying, this way wasn't it, but you are very close. If only we could find the courage to just sit in that silence, to not rush to fill it up again, we would find the doorway we have been looking for all along. Real awakening doesn't get rid of the fire of desire. It just changes it. It becomes a desire not for escape, but for understanding. Not for feeling numb, but for awareness. The person who finds stillness dissolves S into life, while the other dissolves R away from it. The moment you notice this difference, you start to see that even your most difficult paths were not wasted. They were just roads you took while you were learning how to walk home. So maybe the next time that craving arises, don't follow it. Don't fight it either. Just listen. Because maybe that feeling isn't what you think it is. Maybe it's just the quiet voice inside, waiting for you to hear it in the silence between your thoughts. After every storm, there's a quietness, a stillness that settles after the thunder is gone. It's in that silence, I think, that we can hear most clearly. We often miss it. We expect clarity to arrive with bright lights and easy answers, not with a feeling of collapse and struggle. But maybe that's exactly how it works. Clarity comes not through our comfort, but through the breaking open of what we thought was solid. Your own longing, your struggles, that's where the lessons are. There comes a moment, after the fleeting pleasure is gone, when everything becomes very still, and suddenly the thing that promised you escape becomes a mirror. It shows you your own face. The usual fixes stop working. The excitement is gone, and you are left with the quiet emptiness that was always there. Most people would call this a bad thing, but it isn't. It is an opportunity. Your own mind and body have brought you to this place to show you something important. It's saying, look, you have chased the shadow for a long time. Now it's time to see what casts it. It can be difficult to look. Yes, because it asks you to be honest. But it's also important, because underneath it all is what's true. The moment you realize, I was never looking for that thing, I was looking for myself. Every hard time holds a seed of wisdom. Every fall is a secret doorway. You had to get lost, not as a punishment, but as a way to prove that your true self can't really be lost. The stories you tell yourself, your habits, your cravings, they are just like clothes. The stillness within tries them on for a while. When they fall away, what's left is what you've always been. Pain and struggle are not random. They are life's strange way of getting your attention. When life is easy and loud, we forget to listen. So, with great care, life shakes us. It sends us storms, not to break us, but to wake us. Like a seed that must crack open before it can grow. The shell of our old ideas must be broken before we can bloom. If you never felt that deep ache of longing, You would never look for what is truly real. So in those difficult moments, something profound is happening. Something new is being born inside of you. It might not look like a big realization. It might not feel calm, but it is. Because change is not always gentle. Sometimes it's a fire that burns away what isn't needed. And sometimes it's the emptiness that finally makes room for what is true. There comes a time when the running just stops. Not because you've arrived at some final destination, but because you realize the road was always leading back to yourself. And when that moment of quiet understanding comes, something shifts. You look at the very thing that caused you so much trouble, and you see it for what it truly was. Your greatest teacher. You don't get better by fighting the difficult parts of yourself. You find peace by turning toward the light they were pointing to. The moment you begin to see the deeper message hidden in your craving, the old pattern loses its power. Because you see, the struggle lives on misunderstanding. It's fueled by the belief that you are broken. But the moment you see through that story, the whole thing begins to change. It's like waking up from a long, troubled sleep. For years you thought the problems were real. You fought them, you ran from them. Then suddenly, your eyes open, and you realize the struggle was never outside of you. It was all happening inside. That is what waking up means. It's when you discover that even your difficult parts had a purpose. You stop fighting against life, and you start to move with it. And that flow, that is freedom. Having real trust is like trusting yourself to water. When you swim, you don't grab the water. If you do, you sink. Instead, you relax. You float. Freedom isn't about avoiding pleasure. It's realizing that no single pleasure can ever satisfy that deep inner longing. It's knowing the peace was never in the experience, but in your awareness of it, in the watching. What once pulled you down now becomes an invitation. The craving that led you into a circle now points you toward a clear path. Because any deep longing, when it's truly understood, turns into a kind of devotion. A devotion to what's true, to awareness, to life itself. It's not about becoming perfect. It is about remembering. Remembering you were never separate from the peace you were looking for. And so, the very thing that once caused you trouble becomes your teacher, a doorway back to yourself. Awakening isn't gaining something new. It's the gentle removal of what was false. And when you remember your own nature, the old habits become unnecessary. How could you crave what you already are? How could you seek wholeness when you realize you've been whole all along? In that realization, a quiet calm arises. Life was never a problem to be solved. It was a reality to be experienced. And even the difficult notes were part of its beauty. The journey through struggle is like the dawn after the longest night. There's no longer a fight between darkness and light. There is only the understanding that both were needed for the sun to rise. If you are ready to continue this journey of returning to yourself, subscribe. There is always more to discover, step by step. You know, after all the storms, all the searching, there comes a moment when everything gets very quiet. The strong urges stop. The questions fade away. And in that stillness, something peaceful begins to breathe through you. Perhaps this simple, quiet moment was what you were searching for all along. The guidance we look for isn't always in the grand events, but in the simple feeling of our own presence. In every desire, every habit, every mistake, something true was trying to reach you. We spend so much of our lives waiting for a big sign, a vision, a light in the sky. All along, the answer was whispering in our most human moments. In the unsteady hand reaching for something to numb the feeling. In the quiet regret, it was all part of the path. Always. Your falls, your cravings, your struggles, these were not mistakes. They were the path itself. Because life is not interested in you being perfect. It is interested in your full participation. In your willingness to feel, to stumble, to get back up, to return. When the stillness inside wants your attention, it doesn't always send you comfort. Sometimes it sends a disruption. Yes, sometimes it takes away your certainties, not to hurt you, but to call you home. It shakes the ground a little so that you might remember to look up. It makes the old pleasures feel empty so that you might listen for what is timeless. Until finally, you just stop running and you listen. And when you do, when you finally allow yourself to just listen, you realize that stillness was never far away. It was never lost. It was never hiding. The peace you were searching for through all the noise was the silence that was watching the whole time. It was there when you first reached for an escape. It was there when you thought you had gone too far. It was there when you finally said, "I can't do this anymore." And it's here now, breathing in your awareness, watching as you understand. The whole game was never about escaping your humanity. It was about remembering that even in your most human moments, you are connected to something whole. So now, my friend, if you have heard something today, not just with your ears, but with your whole being, then the purpose of your struggle has already been met. Rest, not as someone who has run away, but as someone who has finally arrived. The quiet voice has been speaking to you all along. And now, in the silence, it is at peace. Because at last, you've remembered. You were never apart from it. You were its voice, calling yourself home.